Hey everybody, welcome back to BobkeTV. Time once again for the broom wagon. Is it that time of the week already? Good, bad, and the ugly from the racing, of course. Paris-Nice just finished. Tirreno just finished. Neutral zone news. We got the Colorado Classic is back. Tour of Colorado. It's had a few different names over the years, but it'll be back also. Ghent Wevelgem. Musette Musings. David Brailsford. And the whole Sky program still in the headlines. And of course, a very funny tweet of the week from Chris Froome. All right, everybody. Next up, the good, the bad, and the ugly. All right, good. The good. Let's start with the good from Paris-Nice. Sergio Henao. Pretty brilliant racing by Henao, in all honesty. Also his teammate Luke Rowe to keep him out of trouble the first couple of days. He eventually would go on to win the overall by just 2 seconds after an absolutely thrilling battle with Alberto Contador on the last stage. And I hope everybody got a chance to see that stage, or at least get a chance to look at the highlights. That's about as good as bike racing gets. Two of the best climbers, two of the best stage racers on the planet, going tooth and nail at each other, all the way to the line. Alberto Contador also to the good. His attacking style made for the most thrilling race so far this year. And I hope we get to see a lot more of those. And Alberto, on the last day of Paris-Nice, was at his very best and wiped out a 31-second deficit and just lost by 2 seconds. So Henao and Contador locked in a great battle for the overall title at Paris-Nice, and it was Sergio Henao that came out with the win. But that was an incredibly thrilling race, great to commentate on, and I hope everybody got a chance to see that. Also to the good, Julian Alaphilippe continues his progress. Young pro, just starting to really fulfill his potential. Won the time trial at Paris-Nice, commanding win in the time trial, led the race, had the yellow jersey for 3 stages, and wound up winning the best young riders jersey and the green points jersey, and finished 5th overall. So great riding by Julian Alaphilippe, and a big star of the future. It's been 20 years since any French rider has won Paris-Nice, and Julian Alaphilippe looking like the most likely rider from France to end the drought of wins at Paris-Nice. Whether or not he'll be a Tour de France contender in the years to come, let's hope so. But a lot of young talent, great riders from France coming out from France, and Julian Alaphilippe will be one of those riders to reckon with, and be very successful as his career progresses. The good and the bad got to be Richie Porte, pre-race favorite, and he actually proved to be maybe the strongest guy in the race in the mountains, winning the toughest stage so far this year to the Col de la Quillole to finish off stage number 7, an incredibly brutal slog through the mountains, and Richie Porte going away. Just absolutely annihilated his rivals in that, but he had already lost over 15 minutes in the crosswinds on stage 1 and 2. He had a good individual time trial, finish in the top 10 on that, but then made a big comeback in the hardest stage, the hardest day of racing so far this year, with a stage win. So it's kind of tough to know where Richie Porte is at this point, and you know, first couple of days were just an absolute disaster, and just blown all over the place in the crosswinds. His teammate and one of the best riders in professional cycling, Mickey Schär, had crashed on stage number 1, had to drop out with some broken bones, and so Richie did not have the rider that Sergio Henao had. Sergio Henao had Luke Rowe to shepherd him throughout the early stages in the crosswinds, and I think that Richie, although he struggled so much, he probably was not going to win Paris-Nice anyways, but he would have been a lot closer if Mickey Schär had not crashed and broken his collarbone. And sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. But keep a close eye on Richie Porte for this season. It's going to be interesting to see if he's to the good or to the bad. And a lot of pressure on Richie Porte. Will be the sole leader at the Tour de France for BMC. The ugly, Dylan Groenewegen, stage number 3 riders, just getting all kinds of sideways, losing the way to go in the finish line, getting a little bit lost there. You can see how Dylan Groenewegen felt about it after the stage. Not happy by any stretch of the imagination. And there is the bike throw. The classic bike throw. The telltale sign of a pro that's not pleased with how the racing went. Alrighty. You know, it's understandable. You know, a guy in front of you can't see where he's going and takes you out. That's grounds for disappointment. Anyways, let's move on to Tirreno Adriatico. A tremendous amount of action in Italy. To the good, BMC dominating the team time trial, as they often do, almost always do, in fact. Also to the good, Nairo Quintana. He's on great form, going to race the Giro and the Tour de France this year. The long, clean stage of the Tirreno Adriatico finishes on top of a mountain called the Terminillo that Quintana won a couple of years ago when he did win Tirreno Adriatico before, but that was in a big snowstorm. This, much better weather, but still the same winner. Nairo Quintana dominant on a long climb to the finish line against some of the best pros on the planet and some of the big rivals in the Grand Tours upcoming this summer. So a great ride in Tirreno by Nairo Quintana. He went on in the time trial to keep his lead and win the overall. So another win for Quintana to start the year. This time Tirreno Adriatico, and he's looking solid for his Giro. His Giro d'Italia, he's going to be very tough to beat in this year's Giro. Also to the good, Peter Sagan. Where would our sport be without Peter Sagan? But on stage number 5, he had one of his most remarkable wins I've ever seen. I'm going to read you the group of riders he finished with to win the stage. There were only 9 guys. So these are the 8 guys that Peter Sagan beat to win the stage, number 5 at Tirreno. Thibaut Pinot, Primoz Roglic, Bauke Mollema, Rigoberto Urán, Tom Dumoulin, Nairo Quintana, and Rowan Dennis. Geraint Thomas also. All GC riders, all of those guys, very capable in all the stage races they do, including the Grand Tours. This is the GC right here. This is the cream of the crop in Tirreno for the GC, and most of the stage races we cover throughout the year. And Peter Sagan able to stay with them and smoke them in the sprint. A really impressive ride by Peter Sagan. That's from good to great. He is a real talent, and it's a great pleasure to watch him race, commentate on his race. So I hope everybody's enjoying that. Here is the podium celebration by Peter Sagan. Here we go. Given the I gotta love Peter Sagan. It's so funny. All right. There is some bad though to report on Tirreno. Bad that could have been ugly. Sagan again in the individual time trial. If we take a look at this, dog walkers, at least the dog's on the leash, but Sagan going behind the spectators, barely avoiding this, which would have been an incredibly ugly crash for Peter Sagan. So he had his head up just at the right moment, was able to see the dog walker walking across the crosswalk, the pedestrian crosswalk, but unaware that there's a Tirreno Adriatico. Pretty hard to imagine, but Peter Sagan, not only can he win, but he also can save the day. So no shortage of Peter Sagan's abilities on the bicycle. The ugly, oof, this is really ugly. This is the team time trial, and Team Sky absolutely flying and having a great team time trial up until this point, and the rider in question is Johnny Moscon from Team Sky, and apparently he hit a pothole previous to what we were able to capture. Watch this. So he feels that the front wheel is starting to come apart, and so what happens to carbon when it starts to disintegrate? Oh man, and unbelievably, Moscon gets up, finishes the stage, and was competitive the rest of Tirreno Adriatico. So hats off to Johnny Moscon for being a very tough individual. And two other riders, Diego Rosa, one of them, also, and maybe it was Kirienka from the squad, also having their wheels fall apart on them. So hopefully, when you hit a pothole with a full carbon wheel like that, maybe you should think about what's going to happen to your bike in the next few kilometers. And let's hope that we don't see any more of that. But Johnny Moscon, man, it could have been so much worse. All right, that's it for the good, the bad, and the ugly. Next up is the Neutral Zone News. Okay, everybody, in the Neutral Zone News, Ghent-Wevelgem, the one-day classic, semi-classic from Belgium, one of the one-day classics that are the hallmark of the spring racing. Ghent-Wevelgem, a very prestigious race, will honor the memory of Antoine Demoitier, who was killed in the race last year. Last spring, a lot of motorcycle and vehicle interaction with the peloton, and I called for the UCI to step in and make some very clear, definitive rules of engagement between the cyclists, the race course itself, and the entire caravan of motorcycles and cars, and have strong safeguards in place for the peloton. And in the middle of that, because there had been so many close calls and so many crashes, Antoine Demoitier was killed during Ghent-Wevelgem, and one of the most tragic things I've seen in all of my years following cycling. So he will be honored at Ghent-Wevelgem, and the racers will be memorializing him throughout the day. And it seems like this year it's slightly improved safety-wise over last year, but it's still, the UCI did come out with a more clear guideline for how the peloton should comport itself throughout the racing across the calendar. And so I think that that's had a positive effect. And also the Belgian race promoters have done a lot to mark the course where it's safe to pass and where it's not safe to pass. And I think they did that above and beyond what the UCI had put in place. So let's hope that all the riders can stay safe throughout the year and we don't have those harrowing accidents that have really been plaguing the sport in the last few years. And best of luck to everybody in this year's Ghent-Wevelgem coming up the spring, and full coverage from that on the broom wagon in the weeks to come, and all the other classics. So it's a racing season underway, and been thrilling racing so far this year. Also, the Colorado Classic is coming back. That will be on NBC Sports. Myself, I will be at the race, commentating on it, and doing some field reporting. So I'm excited that the race, after a one-year hiatus, it was previously called the US Pro Challenge. Before that, it was the Coors Classic. Before that, it was the Red Zinger. But the state of Colorado, one of the most gorgeous places to hold bike races, and my home state. So I'm glad the race is back, and I'm glad to be a part of it. And it's just one of the hotbeds of cycling in the country. And let's hope that they found a sustainable business model, and the Colorado Classic can go on for years and years and years to come. All right, everybody, next up, the Musette Musings. Okay, in the Musette Musings, Dave Brailsford, still in the headlines. This week it's come out that he's made an announcement. He will not quit He will not be quitting his management role in Team Sky. The team has asked for the riders to sign a written letter of support for Dave Brailsford. A number of them have gone to Twitter to voice their support of Dave Brailsford. Up until today, depending on when you're seeing this, Chris Froome most notably, had been absent in all of those discussions. It was announced that he had refused to sign the letter of support that Team Sky was asking the riders to do so. It was reported also that in spite of one faction of the team voicing their support of Dave Brailsford, another faction was contemplating asking for Brailsford's resignation, which would have been huge if that happened. But Chris Froome has now made a statement that was released to the public, and it hasn't been reported, in spite of this statement, that he signed the letter of support for David Brailsford. But this is what Froome said. It disappoints me hugely to see the way in which Team Sky has been portrayed by the media recently. It does not reflect the support crew and the riders that I see around me. If Froome had left it at that, it would have been very, very disappointing. And when I read that paragraph from his statement, I went from mildly annoyed to very disappointed in Chris Froome. But I read a little bit further, and this is what he said. Also, at the same time, I completely understand why people feel let down by the way in which the situation has been handled. And going forward, we need to do better. I would like to apologize for this on behalf of myself and the other riders of Team Sky who feel passionately about our sport and winning clean. I believe in the people around me and what we are doing. So that goes a long ways in saying the right things. It remains to be seen still if David Brailsford is able to stay in place as a team manager. I believe that the transparency that they promised us from the beginning, the cleanest of the clean teams, the zero tolerance, that Brailsford has violated that with the industrial level of lying about the TUE situation that Bradley Wiggins was in the 2011 Dauphiné, what was exactly delivered to Bradley Wiggins, and all of that stuff I've covered previously on the Musings in the Broom Wagon, so you can review all of those. But lie after lie after lie by David Brailsford it's not in keeping with the promises that we were made and the disappointment that fans must have had that Chris Froome referred to. So I still think that for the team to move forward, David Brailsford should remove himself. And if he won't, he should be fired by Team Sky. And if you think about the intensity for the riders, and this is maybe what has led them to contemplate asking for his resignation, the intensity of what they're going to go through, here we are in March, if you multiply that by about 50,000, that's what it's going to be like in July during the Tour de France. The stormy waters that the ship of Team Sky is currently navigating are going to get a lot worse. So I think that a successor should be identified and brought up to speed and take over as soon as possible for Team Sky. Otherwise, this is a bad situation that's going to get worse and worse and worse. And in fairness to the riders, I think that Brailsford should step down and somebody should replace him, which won't be easy, obviously, but I think at this point it's essential. And the team's mission is to provide a team that people can believe in. And That is definitely not the case currently. And unless I just don't see how Brailsford can move forward. There's been so many lies and so many inaccuracies and so many easily disproved claims that there's no damage control that's possible. The trust has been completely violated, and a full full transparency, a complete factual recounting of what happened is not possible. To say you didn't know what was in the Ziploc baggie that was delivered to Bradley Wiggins, to say it was delivered for somebody else, Emma Pooley in that case, to say that the bus wasn't there when it was there, it just, unless you're going to provide us with the actual truth of what was in that, and then to say you can't remember, you didn't know, you've had to ask everybody to find out, that's a giant hole that you've dug yourself into, Dave Brailsford. You cannot climb out of, and it's time to go. All right. Team Sky situation, I'm sure we're going to have plenty more of those on the Music Musing, so be ready. And I think that before the end of the Tour de France, one of them is going to be that Dave Brailsford has stepped down from management of Team Sky. All right. On to the Tour of California. Some disappointing news for the Action Hagens-Berman squad. They have not been invited, along with the Holowesko Partners team, and a couple of the best American teams will not be in one of the biggest races in America, and that's got to be very, very disappointing. Nelson Paulus, one of the most talented prospects in the history of American cycling, will not be able to compete. He was 9th last year. He was the best young rider. He spent a lot of the Amgen Tour of California right in the front with the very best riders on earth, and it is a massive disappointment for the followers of the sport, for the followers of American cycling, that he and his teammates will not be in the Amgen Tour of California, nor will Adrian Costa, an incredibly talented young American rider. And, you know, to be honest, in the biggest American races, you want to see the best American riders. And a little bit of that is based on the fact that the Tour of California will be a UCI race, and so there's specific guidelines of who has to be invited for all of those races all over the globe. And so no room for Holowesko nor Action Hagens-Berman, and very, very disappointing. Seems to me like they could have invited those two teams. They did not, and that is very sad for the Tour of California. But hopefully we'll get to see Nelson and Adrian in other big American stage races like the Tour of Utah and the aforementioned Colorado Classic. But best of luck to those two squads, and I'm sure they're going to be maybe even more motivated, more attacking, which is pretty frightening for the rest of the domestic peloton or whatever races those guys do. So we'll see how that plays out in the months and weeks and months to come. Also, last item, Patrice Ciprelli has been convicted after a 5.5-year court case of importing EPO, 33 boxes of EPO between 2005 and 2011, which is of note, except for the fact that he is the husband of Jeannie Longo. And Jeannie Longo, I think she has 59 national titles, Olympic gold medal, countless world championships, and was still racing just recently into her 50s. And I raced against Jeannie Longo, and to think that it's been decades since I retired and that Jeannie Longo is still racing, it's sad to think that one of the reasons that her longevity has gone on so long is because she's been using EPO to get an unfair advantage over her competitors. But I don't see what explanation is adequate when you consider all the facts that her husband has is buying and importing EPO. I think it was so Gini Longo could continue to compete at the highest level. If you disagree with me, if you think that Patrice Ciprelli had other reasons for importing a ton, 33 boxes of, I mean, I don't know how many doses are in a box, but it seems like a lot of EPO. So if you think that Patrice Ciprelli was importing EPO for some other reason, please go to the comments section and let me know, because I'd be curious as to understand why. That's the only conclusion that I can come up with logically. There might be others, let me know. All right, everybody, next up is the tweet of the week. All right, everybody, tweet of the week coming to us from Chris Froome. Froome coming back to his home base in Europe, in Nice, or around there, southern France, Monaco, perhaps, southern France, excuse me. Trying to get home, but keep getting held up by Paris-Nice 2017. Can I just join in? Well, Sergio Henao, and there's a picture of the peloton that Chris took going behind him while he's out on his training ride. His teammate Sergio Henao would have loved to have Froome Dog join in and try to chase down Alberto Contador. At that moment, Henao in a fight for his life against Alberto Contador, who was just rampaging across the hills outside of Nice. Contador almost stole the win, but Henao held on, and maybe a little extra inspiration seeing Chris Froome on the side of the road outside of Nice. All right, everybody, the bike season is under full steam ahead. It's going to be a great year, and thanks for watching all of the Broomwagon. Follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Comments, like I said, please share. And I want to commend everybody on doing a great job keeping the language pretty clean and civilized. I appreciate that. You can subscribe by clicking on my face, buy merchandise by clicking on the t-shirt icon, and thumbs up, greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot, everybody.